Good morning and welcome to Beyond Headlines, reaching you from Freedom Square TV here in Enugu, the coal city state. Today, we'll be looking at a very important topic, a topic that has affected the growth, development, and progress of Igbo. A program that speaks to Onyaha na Nwanne ya, and that is the Igbo, what they call Igbo boy in Igbo language, or more specifically, the Igbo Apprenticeship scheme. It's a system that has endured all over the years. After the Civil War, the Igbos were kind of in trouble. And so the few people who had started trading had an idea of taking their brothers, their sisters, as the case may be, to learn whatever trade they were doing. Part of it is that the boy will spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years, in most cases 8 years, and will be settled by his master. And that brought a lot of Igbo millionaires, Igbo thousandaires, in Lagos, in Aba, in Onitsha, in Kano, in Kaduna, in Zaria, all parts of Nigeria. Igbos looked after their siblings. From their siblings, they started getting other people who were not their siblings to participate and learn the trade. It is unique to Igbo. It is of Igbo origin, and it has made Igbo land the fastest, best economic hub in the whole of Nigeria, even West Africa. Even the Harvard University had carried out a study on this unique way of life. And today we want to have a second look at that important scheme. And joining me here this morning is a man who has extensive knowledge, or who you say is an enthusiast of the Igbo boy syndrome. Elsewhere we had a discussion on this, and it almost broke the internet. And so as I welcome you to Freedom Square TV this morning, Dr. Obasi. Like I will introduce, he's a medical doctor turned public affairs analyst. And he's actually the secretary of the Guild of Public Affairs Analysts of Nigeria, Enugu State Chapter. Dr. Obasi, good morning and welcome to Freedom Square TV.
Good morning, my Oga. Good morning, the crew. Good morning, our viewers.
Every society, if you must agree with me, evolves, and as a matter of fact, affects its system. And the Igbo society is one. In Igbo land, which of course is the southeast part of Nigeria, one of the systems is the trade skill apprenticeship scheme, known as variously as Igbo boy, Igbo Dibo, Imooro, or Imooro Aka. You can call it any kind of name you want to call it. So, let me ask my guests the first simple question, and that is, what exactly is Igbo boy? What exactly is Igbo apprentice scheme, from your understanding?
Okay, Igbo apprenticeship scheme is a scheme that is, like you said, is cultural. It is unique to Igbo people. It's been there for ages, but became extremely pronounced immediately after the war. It is a mechanism where people, somebody is taken up by a master, and the master assumes a responsibility of training, of teaching, training, mentoring, nurturing, and seeing to it that this person becomes a human being. It's a mechanism where you take a young man, in typical Igbo land, is a young lad, and you are proud to say that this person is my son. I've made him to become what he is, and he is to help others in building the society. So the typical way is that the Igbo man, the family, it's usually contracted via an informal sector. It's not documented anywhere. And you see the family will bring a young boy and ask the mentor that they wanted him to mentee the child, and to mentor the child rather. And the mentee is actually initiated into the program by understanding his asking him few questions like his resilience to stay, his ability to respect his oga, and to understand the rudiments in the business. And usually, like you said, it's a community effort. People know each other, and usually you take the child from the community. Now, what actually happens is that the boss or the mentor takes the child and then introduces him bias in online. And then when he introduces him to that, usually broken by a crate of malt, mineral biscuits, and he's given a little place where he will stay. He is asked in the olden time it used to be at the shop, there's a little space created either in the shop or in the market where the child will stay. But more recently, some of the bosses will have hired a house where these boys or the young ones are quartered. And then their job is very simple, depending on the level of, duration the child has stayed. Initially, the child is actually asked to come to the market or to the place and familiarize himself with the environment. Thereafter he's graduated or promoted, like we always see in our own formalized system. The first time you peruse the market, you get to understand the market, how it is like. You listen and understand the lexicon, the language register utilized. You are initiated into understanding who your customer will be, the weddings and the talks. And in fact, you are equally taught customer relationship, because you see a boy, you are taught to talk to a man, serve a woman. You see a person you feel is coming to you, but carrying some luggages. You take the luggages, embrace the person, show the person your shop, and talk to the person, market your products. Now, so now you go to the see people walking on the street and direct them to the master's workshop. The master in turn takes care of your day-to-day livelihood, your feeding, your accommodation, your clothing. In turn, he believes you are going to learn, bit by bit. As the year goes by, you've learned, you've moved to the next stage. Like the first stage I say, you just familiarize, your customers, and then bring them to the shop, to buy goods. After a while, you see that a person begins to, get to the level where you could document, look at, to give credit incentive. By the time you know your customers, you know the regular ones. You know those ones, what they need, you package their goods the way it should be. And then to the point where you could be the head boy. If you come to including a workshop, they will always say, who is the foreman, who is the head boy, who now takes some managerial decisions and then hands over, gives instruction as the day goes by. And then to a reasonable extent could actually punish and erring younger ones. He now talks with the organ and they talk about how the business goes. Now, at that level, you've grown to that, stage of managerial capacity. The organ would have leveraged a lot of his knowledge on the child. And then the young man would have taken some decisions. Some of them will get to the extent of, moving ahead to go to establish branches and so on. If you have multiple branches, there's always overall head who would coordinate activities and do some, analysis, financial analysis, and bookkeeping at the end of the day, do auditing, and so on and so forth. Many of us might be asking, how do they do these things? Of course, these things are informal sector, and they get to understand it clearly. Now, by the time the child has, finished during the duration, two things must have actually, first, it's a system that rewards value. It's a system that rewards hard work. It's a system that rewards honesty. So the other would, at the end of the day, say, fine, this my young man has done so well. So what do we do? In a typical Igbo land, they will say, let's open a shop, casual combine. Some will actually say, okay, can do one. Iduya simply means giving settlement.
Yes.
And then it doesn't stop there. The settlement is not settlement to get to the bank to borrow. Settlement is not settlement you are left on your own. No. what happens is that the settlement takes a part of the organ. And how do I mean here? The settlement is such that the guy will like, okay, I'm going to find a shop, give you such and so amount of money, you start life. Now you are going to place some goods in your shop, and if you have any need for further goods, you needed your capacity is not too good, or you need to do things in our in our own you needed to have a shorty that I am there. And in most cases, you see the young man, he might go to a shop that may be a little bit scanty because it's initial starting, but he still has a bank, which is his organ's workshop or his organ's shop, where if he needs any amount or quantity of goods, he relies back at a facility that will not cost the child anything. And what is the facility? Trust. So this is built on the years you have actually, gained trust of your master. Sometimes you get to your master's shop, he gives you the key, you pick the goods, and then the master will simply ask, "I'm on the key with." So you do not clearly you're not going to take more than you are supposed to take. And at the end of the day, you balance him, and he gives you your own incentive. The extra gain that comes there, they have a way of sharing it. Sometimes he'll tell you, bring 1 naira back to me, but make sure that you take your own gain. So that's how it goes. And then if you run into trouble, because he's your mentor, you still go back to him that this is the trouble I'm running into. Maybe my money is not enough. I have a big problem. And it actually took away my money. Now, at the end of the day, what does the man gain? The mentor. The mentor gains one simple thing. He is proud to have seen a young man that grow. In society, he is highly cherished. Maslow's hierarchy of need, they will look at him as having come to the self-actualization. He has bequeathed in himself, a progeny. He has bequeathed in himself children of years. And then in turn, the young man that has just been settled is expected to return back to the community to pick some other person, to mentor and bring up to be a rich man. Now, for those of us who are familiar in Anambra, you understand this clearly if during December, some of the rich men will, in their homes, or the older ones, you see their young boys, coming in and say, Ogam Kanje and Ogam Kanje Bogam. And you be like, how is this man that is this old? You see beautiful cars. And if for any reason you are doing anything, you're having your birthday, you're having your child, marriage, you're having anything, you see the young boys he has mentored. And if you enter that occasion and you see a good master, you indeed want to be an organ. Yeah, it's a thing that is, you feel proud of. In your old age, your boys, your younger ones will never let you, down. And in some instances, you see some of them who will tell you, at older age, the man might have not been able to, to have met, keep to the pace. You see some of them will return back to say, my organ had as a partner. Let's add some money back to him. So it's a mechanism that is win-win. And for so many of us who might really not understand it clear, people would understand, would wonder, how is it that by 1970, a desolate place, a place where people hardly got 20 pounds. The Nigerian government said they gave us 20 pounds. Many didn't have actually see that money. But by 1980, by 1990, you could see the place having no remnants of war. That today, if you go across Igbo land, you might not really see, the effect of war in any place. And that is the power of, of the Igbo boy. It's something that has thrived over the years. It's something that Igbos are proud of. And if anybody wants to criticize it, the person would actually understand that it is one thing that took us out of the war and made us whole.
Okay. What you just described is the working Igbo boy.
Yes.
The one that has worked. Many never worked. Many failed for one reason or the other. But currently in Igbo land, people believe that this system is outdated or has been abused over time. What's your take on this?
If you go to camp, over the last 4 years, I will mention two persons which I know. That's the one called Tony Honda. There's one called Chisco. There's one called Ifani Honda. There's one called Damian. And these are products of Igbo boy. And I've seen their younger generations. I've seen the ones they trained. I've seen the ones they mentored. In fact, I got to know about their big boss. One day I needed a thing and they just told me Kajen and Koga. I just said, let's go to Koga. And I was like, who is Yoga? I knew that he had some dealings with Damien, but he took me to one old man.
Yeah.
And he said, Oga Iwerenka. I was like, wow. So what am I trying to point out? Yes, it's outdated, as some people will claim. It's fraught with a lot of irregularities. It's fraught with a lot of people not settling, young ones, but at the same time, it's still thriving. What I think needs to be done is need to revitalize it. Let me put it this way. Igbo boy is outdated. What about our formal education that guarantees nobody food in? That one is completely obsolete. Yeah, because you only end up feeding if you go to formal education, only if you are able to secure a job. But these days, where jobs are very difficult to secure, what do you call about? What do you call that one? You are just moving around with certificates, speaking big grammar without anything. Now, the issue is that every system has its own shortfalls. And then you can't just neglect it. What I think is more important is how do we sustain it and make it better? Because one thing that goes with the Igbo boy syndrome is the ability to give, make the young man an entrepreneur. It's a different ballgame from our formal education that does not really allow you to think of independence. The Igbo boy does not really make the child to start working for somebody. You finish your 4 or 5 years, just like you finish in a university, you are baited into self-reliance, you are baited into catering for yourself, you're baited into solving a problem for the society. You're baited into thinking like an entrepreneur. Unlike the one we have today, which is trying to incorporate entrepreneurship, you are only baited into looking for job. So both are not the same. But I think more importantly, we can begin to look at how to regularize Igbo boy to make it a little bit more flexible and adapted.
We'll actually come to that. But we are talking about parents who are now skeptical. Many parents are now skeptical about this Igbo boy. And I will tell you, one young man, I watched his video. He said he lost his father when he was 1. And he is from a middle family, or he came from a middle income family. When the father was alive, when the father died, it was only the mother. They had 3 others. They got into abject poverty. A Igbo boy, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But he said he was restive. He was doing a lot of things, and he was actually a gift to his master. Until somebody called him and said, "Look, you're too bright. What do you want to say? I want to go back to school." And so at the point of trying to leave his master, he became a trouble. They didn't want him to go. And so he dubbed it domestic slavery. He said that people like you who are speaking big grammar, boy, that the boy means first, you live in the man's house. That's what you're talking about. So you serve the wife, you serve the children, and then you go to work. And after 4 years, if the wife has one single reason not to like you, they push you out. What you have just said are some few success stories. Just like in the formal education you're talking about, there are many success stories.
Yeah.
When you say, well, no, there are many success stories of why people go to school. So he is saying, and many people are positing, that the current context is a modern day slavery. So what do you say to that?
Okay, let me give you a case scenario. In the same camp I just mentioned now, the boy that serves the boy I mentioned, Chisco, he's a graduate of IMT. He was serving him. He goes back to his own mother's house. He does not live with Chisco. He was a student of IMT, awaiting his due service. So how about that?
But this one is still acquisition.
No, it's not. I'll tell you. Because the same thing the one boy does. Now, what people are...
This one is no longer the one boy.
No, it's a modernized one.
Okay, so that's the traditional one boy and the...
No, what I'm trying to point out, that's why what I posited, that what it requires is refining. It requires a lot of refinement. Now, the one we saw in 1970 cannot be operational today. What we are even seeing today cannot be operational in the next,
So you are saying that the culture of Yoruba boy, as we knew it then, is almost outdated now.
It can't be applicable now. I will tell you again. Like I started,
because even the kids are in a hurry. 1 year, you don't make money.
Yes,
they'll kidnap you. 1 year and they're not seeing money, and they see you're making good money.
Yes,
so I don't want to be kidnapped.
Yes, these are the issues. Now, if you remember, I said earlier that the original one boy has to sleep in the shop.
How many young boys want to sleep in the shop?
No, not even there. The market system does not allow you again
to sleep in the shop.
Now, because of this problem you deposited, many of the bosses do not even allow their one boy to come home. Now, you talked about one end. Let me look at the other end. Some of the one boys have been touted to have slept with their master's wives. So some of the masters on the other side would say, please, this young man shouldn't be in my house. Let me come here for a treat. I didn't want what I passed through, to be experienced by some other person. I have my daughters at home. I don't want somebody that would, at his puberty stage, abuse my child. Or I'm going to rent a house for you guys. Now, the other angle, which you just pointed out, is the young men are no longer interested in staying that duration of time. It's like you are wasting the person's years. Now, during the time we were talking about this one boy, many people do not go to secondary school. Many will end up, there was abject poverty. I'll give you a typical example. I schooled in Merchants of Light Oba. By the time I finished, I'm the first son. Because it's something that is common. My friends asked me, when would I join their elder brother, as one boy? And the young man promised to settle me very well. My father, was a bossa. And I told him, no, I want to go to school, that I wanted to join. And I wanted to study medicine, and it's almost impossible to combine the two. And that was why I didn't do. Now, but some other persons went through. It worked. What I found out that it's because of poverty. Because what he told me then was that that the first son should be able to make money early and help in training the other ones. Because poverty was, much rampant than what we have today. Formal sector, getting loan from the banks was almost an impossible mission. So what I think it's there is that we could actually modify the program to suit today's narrative. Like I was looking at, can't we combine TVET, formal education, and then the informal one boy. For some of us that when we went on our tour, I was like asking the Commissioner for Education, can't you link this up with CAMP? Because a lot of things you're trying to do there could actually be gotten at CAMP. But I can tell you that you might finish training a child in a secondary school. He has all the knowledge, but may not be able to buy the equipment. But a child that was trained in, that informal sector, you'll be surprised that before he finishes, his son would have come. If you don't know, you will go to spanner. Some of the kids, during the years, would have, after 2 years, might ask me, "Get spanner kit again." You show your spanner kit. I want to see what is in it. You want to see you begin to gather your tools. You want to see you at the end of each day. If you are giving money, you would like, what are you going to do with this money? You want you to be accountable. So you see, those are the good side of it, which we can actually leverage. Some may not be found in formal sector. We actually don't go to school. So I think we can actually do a lot better. In Anambra State, I know there was a time, I don't know if that legislative, they were trying to do a legislation on Imabwe to make it a little bit more formal, to make it, bringing in some group. I know in some lines in Onitsha, there's this system where you can't treat your one boy. The traders, they are like watching each other's back. And if the boy brings any complaint, they look at it and bring you on board. And if for any reason a child is due to be, to be settled, because again, it harms them. Imagine at your age where you are a big man seated in your shop, and you needed young boys, to go around scouting for customers. Would you do that at this your age? So it's somewhat it's somewhat that when you don't have those ones, the younger ones that will bring the customers to you, your productivity begins to diminish. So it's something that everybody needs it to come up to modernity. In fact, there is when I ran cyber cafe, there's something I noticed. The young men will come rather and say, I need to work. So your money said, no, my organ will say to you. I never knew that among those ICT young men, they have, their organs. Until one day, somebody did at the end of the day, the one person will come, settle the sales skills and buy their airtime. One day I sat down to ask, come and explain to me what you mean by this, your organ. Now says, man, when you have organ, when you call Gonya. In the afternoon, the organ will feed us and so on. Sometimes wash their cars and so on. At the end of the day, they help us in achieve whatever our aim is. So wow, so it's like that. So you see that even in the modern method, you can actually make it a lot better, formalize it and make it even shorter. Because what many of us have understood clearly is we can combine the two. While a child is going to school, you as a father can actually say, more this particular system of a skill from you. These are do's and don'ts. And you caution your child on the need to have that delayed gratification, because that's what the problem we have today.
Yeah.
You could see a young man, just like you rightly pointed out in JS1, you could hear him talk about Iniesta or Mikel Obi, and what $6 billion in a week. You are asking, in fact, the day I heard it, a 12-year-old boy saying that he was talking about between Messi and Ronaldo, who has more money. I was listening to him. I said, this man makes 30 million pounds every week. I said, at what age? So you see, even in the university, in the secondary school, it's called that this delayed gratification is becoming a problem. Our younger ones no longer want to stay and mature in anything they are doing. They just want the quick rich get syndrome.
That brings me to, before I have too many questions. I'll come to that, how the skill can be modernized and formalized without losing core values. That will be a question. I'll come to, should government or NGO play a role in supporting the indigenous business deal? But let me come to what would appear to be the modern Igbo boy. Okite. Because true, but you know of lately that this Igbo boy has shifted from Igbo boy and Alaba. Look, if you go to the you still find a lot of people who are doing that. They are known because it's a rigorous exercise.
Yeah.
If you go to Aba, you'll find people who are you'll find they are there. But you know that in a community, if 10 people are armed robbers, that community will be known as
they are thieves.
They are thieves. Okay? So today, you will agree with me that the most authentic boy, more Yahoo. Then Nigerian Motokite. So what form of Yoruba boy is this one? Because they have the Oga. No, I watched a particular ceremony not long ago. And I saw a group of people, and they have a chief priest. And that's what they are doing. It's just this kind of thing, and you see that Oga, how an ambush the Olo, how Mutazia, they now go and get an empire or a unit and begin to do what? Train others. So Igbo boy had evolved from this here 7 years to the one that is done with the computer, and then learn how to use a.
Now, let me tell you, the what I just described, and that's part of the reason why I stopped my cyber cafe.
You stopped?
Yes, because when I realized that these young boys were recruiting people, putting them in duplexes, in flats, and then what I call it is Omega with all, and their other will finish it up. So the young boys will go, browse the net. In fact, they initially taught how to utilize computers because I took time to understand it. And they have their stages.
Yes.
So their so-called Oga would leverage his skill. By tutoring them, this is the site you need to go into. This is the site you use. This is when you use VPN. This is when you do this to invade all the security networks. And when that's yes, that is Igbo survey. They teach them all those. So I found out that they pass through that hall, and then there are finishers, which are the bigger ones. You see the young ones, spanning the nights, trying to get a lot of things. They can actually, in fact, one day I just opened my server and I saw one of them. He was getting them as many email addresses as he could, and I was busy watching him. And I said, what are you trying to do? He said, if I gather this email, put it in a software, in a flash drive, and give to other. I say, wow. So they are trying to get as much email addresses they could get. Now, the same applicable, some of them will go in to getting phone numbers. In fact, there's one in Enugu now, where there's somebody who will call you with an unknown number, and then at the end of the day, transfer you to one other person. The so-called the man that will do the finishing, and then after they will now transfer you to a Dibia. The so-called Dibia that would actually protect you. Now, that is a same process, but this time around, used in a negative direction. Like I keep saying, every gynecologist can perform a criminal abortion. Every medical doctor can do criminal abortion. Every hacker, every ethical hacker can go into hacking the proper website. But what differentiates is morality. As a medical doctor, you cannot talk to me to do an abortion on a young girl, and I will accept. Except if it is, a medical abortion, like, for example, the woman is threatened on his inevitable abortion. Fine, that is medically accepted abortion. But it's the same process you could use in doing the criminal abortion.
Yes.
But we decide not to do it. So what has actually happened in having them on the other side is people trying to exploit the moral decadence within the society. Which leverages on the same process, the same mechanism, initiation, which is informal, house them, which is what they do today. In fact, the housing of Homo Yahoo is maybe more luxurious than their own housing. They are giving every kind of food. And in the evening, in fact, there are some, I won't mention it here, so that not to, but there are some eatery centers you go in the evening. You see young boys driving in their beautiful Lexus SUV, and you see them packing up to 10, 15 food items. Yes. Of course, I know clearly you see them.
They're not married.
They're not married. Who are they giving this food? It's their boys they kept in the house. So, but that is a negative one, which none of us but it utilizes the same mechanism. And by the way, in their own world, if you help your guy and he gets some money, there's a sharing formula which you get and you upgrade it. At the end of the day, when you become a big boy, you celebrate. I'll tell you something. When I began my sabbatical, one day somebody brought a carton of wine. I said, why did you bring this wine?
Yeah.
And I told me that God blessed me through your cyber. I said, God blessed you through my cyber. So what did you do? He said, because they don't usually like telling me, I said, I don't touch it. And I wouldn't in any way touch this. What I will only advise you is to stop. I will tell you, there's some young man I asked to stop. There are two of them. And they listened to me. In fact, one of them was like a convert. He happened to get $10,000 from a white woman who promised to give back the money. But the woman told her, all this I will marry. Kind of issue. And then the young man told her that was the money she has for her chemotherapy. And that you should make sure that he gave me her back money within the 2 weeks after the death. And then push the money. And the young man got the money, came to me. I said, Doc, what is chemotherapy? He didn't even know what chemotherapy was. And I told him chemotherapy is, medication giving treatment of cancer patients with drugs. He said, eh? I said, yes. He went back online, told the woman that was a Yahoo boy that she should send back her account that he was going to reimburse her. So he did that. I didn't even know. But what brought my attention was where I now saw, saw big fight outside my cyber cafe. So the ring that has collected that were involved in the money.
Why did he send it back?
Yeah, why did he send it back? So you now explain to them, they nearly beat him up. So I came in and intervened and I told them, please, don't. This young man is seeing himself as you might kill this woman. So his conscience was not clear. And that was one of the turning points I said I must close that because
that was the point you closed the cyber.
Yes, I had to close the cyber cafe.
So those who run cyber cafe now, and somehow, because you are paying attention,
yeah,
for a lot of people, it's a money making machine. However, whatever is done there, because you have conscience. Many do not have conscience. If you are interested, but a slice from the 10,000.
No.
Maybe $1,000 is 1 point something million.
No, in fact, I tell you, there was this matter that came. They came to me and said, you are our guy that I was going on the cyber cafe. They said that when they bring in money, I should be able to assist them. Put away the money. They call it Ego. And because I'm a medical doctor, I would easily go. Of course, I have a little of leverage. There are a lot of channels before this money comes to them. And they said 20% of whatever comes in is my own share.
I
said, the same thing that made me, which I keep telling you, I don't want to open hospital because I can't, see myself, shortchanging the system just to make money. I don't look at that. So, and I told them, no, it's not possible. Count me off. This is your business. I cannot. They came with 30%, 40%. And really, I was operating account with GTB. I was operating account with Zenith Bank, which was then the favorite bank they needed. I said, it's not possible. I cannot do that, And so what you are just saying is many of us there's this distinct line we've crossed between morality and legality. Many of us feel that, yes, I can say I am not aware. I can use pseudonym in doing all these things and I will exempt legality. What about your morality?
What about your conscience?
Your conscience. That's my one. That's mine.
How do you sleep at night?
That's the issue. What do I tell God when I'm 65, 70? Would I look back and say you made a society that is better? Would I look back to say that you brought up children that are worse? Unlike myself as a medical doctor, I worked in IMT. And for one day over 7-8 years, if you don't bring in abortion issue to me, they know that. The student, one person that tried doing that, she came to me, I began to counsel her to keep the pregnancy. Because I know a lot of women who are looking for precious babies. A lot of women are ready to say, if you're pregnant, please give back to this child and bring to me.
We'll take care of you.
We'll take care of the child. We'll take care of you. So why would you begin to, get involved in that? So I said, no. Anything that will make me, not be able to sleep, no, I think it's off the track. That's simple. So I think the problem is issue of morality and our people not understanding.
Okay. What role or rules? Okay, how do you think that this king, the traditional Igbo boy, should be modernized of our lives now? Because whether you agree or not, it's gradually eroding.
Yes,
it's dying slowly. You are no longer interested. There is one potent king that kept the Igbo man head, shoulder above the rest of ethnic groups. So what must be done now to either formalize it or make it, modernize it?
Okay, first, let me use Enugu State TVET mechanism as an example. Our informal sector, our apprenticeship mechanism, our, all worker, as the case may be, is gradually fading away. And what TVET tries to do is to bring practical experience learning in a classroom. However, it has a limitation. What's the limitation? The scope, the environment may be a little bit limited. Let me give you a typical example. A young boy who has gone to learn electrical wiring in camp. From day one, will learn how to change bulb in a light vehicle. You will change it in Toyota, you will change it in Mercedes, in Honda, and so on. So you discover that this young man over the next 6 months would have understood a few things where the bulbs are placed, the type of bulbs, the vehicle has. The one thing he has not really understood is the mechanism to which that happens. Now, some of them, the teachers or the mentors don't really have the requisite communication skill to teach these younger ones. So what do I think we'll go to? I believe that government should begin to, like Germany does, should begin to look at how do we couple our younger ones, to these markets. If you go to camp, I'll still use camp, which is very much around us, or Aba, it's an incubation hub. In fact, just give the Aba man a shirt. The young man doesn't need to go into any sales. You will show it and bring out that natural ingenuity in him. Gives you more designs. Give them shoes. And we have, my friend took his young boy, to Aba to put, that former, learn how to make shoes. And then he went to visit him 2 months ago, and the boss was so happy, Now, the issue is, when you have such people who are ready to recruit, you can put your TVET, but couple it with give them a little.
Many people don't know what they call TVET.
Okay, TVET means technical, vocational, and education training, we'll get today.
Okay.
It's whereby you combine vocational work with formal education, bring it to the classroom. In fact, the truth is that most of the older electricians you have, the radio mechanics, those that worked with the white men, they pass through that TV because they come into the class. In fact, in some camps, you still see it, where the master has a board, a mini board. He tells you what you need in some dimensions. Is it the tire of a vehicle, the rim, and so on. That process is gradually fading away. But one unique thing that comes out of, the people going through that informal sector is the trust. The capacity for the young man to get his own ability, to open up his own shop, to become independent at the end of the day. His capacity to build trust, to build resilience is there. So I think what first is government should be able to see how do we link this informal sector to what we are doing. And the outgone rector of INT, I said I'm not comfortable where a lot of builders are in town. People that are actually building houses. Some of them are not as educated as being engineers, but they are building houses. People are living there. Why won't you get these our children who are going on IT to couple with them? So they learn some skills there. They learn the trust, and the employment capacity will be enhanced. They are being able to couple them with this, business, and are better off. And then they gain trust because, many of us in the university or would have passed through the university would easily not forget something. You are trained in both character
And learning.
Now, that your character is how have you behaved. In fact, that is the reason why somebody could say, I will shorty you or guarantee you. This thing is something that actually, propels this one boy. Somebody will tell you, such statements. You go to Lagos and you run into trouble, you don't have enough money, you remember your Oga used to trade there, you call on your Oga, you will simply do a perusal assessment of how has this guy been? Is it the trusted type of person? Is it, you say, you okay, okay, oh, no, open shop in Kano. Yes, I stopped thinking, but you open shop in Kano is my boy. And you see the young man who came into the market with just 200,000, going on to his shop with about 5 million naira worth of goods. And there's something that is, it's intangible. That is the credit scheme.
Yeah.
So you see a person who just finished, learning, and there and there he has about 5 million naira guaranteed with him. Because he doesn't have the money, but he has access to the goods. Again, you go to some of these organs in camp. You might look at them, you might give them, you might bring motors. Do they my son? What is he trying to do? He's trying to, give a dossier. You can't just be there. and you are hungry. You just finish learning. So give it those. Just call it those yellow.
Something marketing.
What's it called? Marketers in the bank.
When they marketing, this
Also,
marketing where the Equatonia.
Okay. Networking people.
Because that's an unspoken networking.
Yes. So you see.
Okay, Equatonia.
So you see him say, or you put a call, don't win, and not say, I'm this type of couple. You see, that is the mentorship. Sometimes you see them, they will tell you, the work is difficult. Let me come. You go and call his order. And that will take do 1, 2, 3 things. And you move on.
There's an area in this business, I will tell you, that is going extinct. That area is an beating. Mechanics, you could find in the area of panel beating. I've taken time to look at. Because you just find the very elderly ones.
Yes.
You're not finding any young man going into panel beating. Because if you go to like a man in Asasa, like Benji, no matter how bad your car is,
to get it up.
No matter how damaged your car is, near 2 weeks, you won't believe it's the same car. What do you think about it? Because that aspect of our scale is almost dying.
Even measuring work and so on. Now, it's the first thing we do as you have as error is to believe that those who should go into such highly skilled, I call it highly skilled areas, and they know, never do well children. Maybe people that you think wouldn't pass, but they forgot quickly. That's something like menstrual work, something like that, and everything requires you have very imaginative capacity. For example, a car is damaged. A lot of calculations are involved. A car is damaged, face to face. Some of them will have to move to a good car, take some dimensions and measurements, return back to that old car to fix it. Now, when you get people who are dropouts, who do not have the capacity to settle down to do, it becomes a challenging task to them. Number one. Number two, some of us who take our vehicles to them look down on these ones. In fact, I will tell you one of the challenging things about this in my point. I keep wondering, why is it that the state government cannot bestow honors? Some of these are our giants. I call them giants in camp. Why won't they be given allocation, property allocation? Why don't they be, incentivized by government? Why would you, give land allocation only to those of us that are educated? Meanwhile, a mechanical engineer takes his car to a mechanic to repair. You reward the mechanical engineer.
Electrical engineer,
So where have we find the mechanism of celebrating these giants? I call them giants because in Germany, most of the architectural designs, like Leonardo da Vinci and so on, they didn't go through the so-called formal education we have today. But if you take a look at the energy they expend, if you take a look at their contribution to the society, if you take a look at the development they've done, it might have not been documented. They need to be celebrated. So some of those things are not encouraging. So, but for me, I think if we start doing things like that, begin to celebrate them, begin to call them, begin to cherish them, even giving them audience, our media to talk, children may begin to, go back to it. Then again, some of us whom they are that patronize them, to be able to give them some respect.
Yes, we should be able to give them some respect. I'm going to ask you, a young man is watching this on Facebook or YouTube, and he seems to be lost. He has no idea what next step to take. What would be advice to him?
My advice is very simple. Look at the scale. In each and every one of us, there are skills that are deposited in us. Each skill has some theory behind it. Be it mechanic, be it anything. Discover a person that will actually give you that skill. Go to that person, partner with him. The one boy is not going to be, just know that you're going to serve the person. But at the same time, like I encourage people, you still get back to get formal education. My child just finished JS3. He's at home now, and it's just about 2 weeks. And I told him he's going to go into web design and so on. So I'm looking at an office where he's going to stay. Now, when I get in that office, if the target is this and this and this are what you should learn, I should be able to, listen to his order and still obey his order. Now, it's a time-bound program. I have to evaluate him. His order has to evaluate him. There's nothing formal, I mean, certification that may come out of it for now. But that does not mean he will not go back to his school. But at the same time, just like I told you, the Chisco boy and this boy, he's an HMD graduate awaiting his youth service deployment. Yet he has learned the skills. But the last time I was discussing with him, he asked me if he was sent to Lagos. I said, you are very close to Yaba and so on, to Alaba and so on. You deploy what you have. So what I'm trying to point out is that you could learn a skill, you could follow this pattern, not the odd way, that it was meant to be good, to be annihilating slavery and so on. No. But there is something you will learn. And by the way, for many of us who might not understand, many of us finishes as graduates and still return back to my boy.
A classmate of mine, when we left the University of Nigeria, actually went to Alaba.
Yes.
And for 2 years, he was an apprentice to a patent medicine dealer. He walked into that place, he was the only graduate. And in 2 years, it was done. It transformed. And what has established now is a pharmaceutical industry. He has grown beyond the patent medicine.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to point out.
Okay. He was even elected the secretary of the union because of other school. And so you see a touch of class.
Exactly.
When that is done. Time is now, friend. I'm going to ask you, successful Igbo businessmen who went through this system, they're big now. Many of them are big. How can they give back to society? And how can they encourage people now without thinking, because that's the cliche now. We don't trust anybody now. But they went through the system. What can they do? Just in a minute.
No, they should be able to, someone like Igbo and so on. Many of them have got, gotten training institutions. Their training institution has actually removed the young ones, from the accounting mechanism.
Okay.
So you can actually leverage that, on the children. But more importantly, the ability to stand, to allow them stand. You still impact that entrepreneurial skill in them, and then you help them establish. That's the most important thing. So they have the better capacity to change the narrative. They have the capacity to, if a boy serves you well, you should be able to separate meat, from reality. You're able to separate the wheat from the chaff. You're able to just say this is the boundary. You can document what the child should do. You know the do's and don'ts. Many of us are today later, and then be able to set aside some percentage of the fund, to settle this young man. And the government should be able to, like Anambra State, legislate on this. They make it a little bit formal, and the child knows that, or the parent knows that there is legality. The obligations they are expecting, and again, there's legality on the side of the boss. You don't just get up to say after 6 years because you told my wife a good morning or not good afternoon, so the boy will go. No, it doesn't work that way. And then
for the issue of Pharaoh's wife and Joseph.
Of course. And then alternative dispute resolution. Yeah, within the market system. Of resolving every dispute. You don't just come tell us that 2 years ago he stole my money. Now why didn't you bring it up immediately? So once a complaint is passed over a period of time, it's assumed that the complaint never occurred. And if we bring it should be because those traders are there. They will look at it and say, we are organ. What I can of mango, okay,
Dr. Obasi, if you could improve one thing, just one thing about the Igbo system, what would it be?
What I will improve on is making it a little bit more formalized. Trying as much as you can, gathering the traders and getting the weaknesses and the strengths, and then sharpening the strengths and putting it up in paper for legislation. That's what I think.
Okay. Dr. Chikezie Obasi. I think this is a good point to leave this conversation. Of course, this is just the part one, because we're going to do a part two of this. And I want to thank you for finding time to be here.
Thank you.
And to those who have been watching us, you've been watching Beyond the Headlines, which of course came to you from Freedom Square TV here in the coast city state of Enugu. Igbo boy is a reality. Igbo boy has helped several young Igbo men, and they are now multi-millionaires. You must not die. Whatever you must do, ensure is continuity. Do that. With this, I say good morning and remain blessed.